The following is a conversation between Matías De Stefano, referred to as me, and his higher self, referred to as I am. The date is April 19th, 2021, and the subject is the emotional aspect of the ankles in the sign of Aries. The title of today's blog is Advance. Me. Keep moving forward. It comes to my head today, you have to keep going, no matter what happens. I am. What makes you think this? Me. What we talked about yesterday about independence made it clear to me that you never get real independence from anything at all. Independence is more of a state of mind, or emotional, in relation to the things around us. It is a state in which the being finds itself before the reality that conditions it. As much as I consider myself an independent person today, I am still linked and in a certain way dependent on my mother, my friends, the emotions that link me to them. That is, at least in another degree of dependency. It doesn't mean I couldn't live without them. No, because I could. But they are still present in my life, and that makes them pillars that support me and on which I lean when I need it. It could be said that I independently choose to be dependent on them. I am, yes, that's one way of looking at it. There are two ways to deal with dependency. Unconsciously, in which we depend on others as a vital need, or consciously, in which we choose to be a bond of interaction with others. Not counting, of course, the third aspect, the subconscious, which tells you that you depend on eating, drinking, and sleeping at the very least. Me. That's why I was thinking that throughout thousands of years, beyond the transcendental philosophies and recognitions that we make about our dependencies, no matter how much we free ourselves from empires, kingdoms, governments, cultural, social, and religious systems, feudal, powerful bosses, families, toxic friendships, or partner relationships, in one way or another we continue to depend on something, be it from the past, in the present, or towards the future. So, independence can only really be characterized by one fundamental factor. I am. Which one? Me. The advance. Moving forward. Transcend every step we take. Don't stop us. Is it not like this? I am. Exactly. The mechanism that makes you aware that you are practicing independence is your ability to move forward in life. When we talk about transcendence, we talk about going one step further, another level. The word comes from trans, meaning from one side to the other, and scandere, meaning to go up, to climb. You can imagine it as follows. You decide to go to the mountain, to climb to the top, and take some good photos of the landscape. First you walk through a plain, then a valley, and you go deeper until you find uphill paths, which will take you along mountain roads, winding paths, until you start having to climb, scrambling over the rocks, going up difficult parts like steps. I ask you, from the point where you are now, does everything you have traveled before lose meaning? Me. No, because it's part of the path. I am. So, trying to eliminate, erase, cut, change what happened would be foolish. In the same way that if you already were near the top, you wanted to eliminate the bottom of the mountain because you already consider it irrelevant for your purpose. What photo would you take of the landscape if, believing that the only important thing was the top, you decided to eliminate the entire mountain and the valley? Me. Sure, it doesn't make any sense. I am. For this very reason, you must see your path to the future as the path to the contemplation of your past. Transcendence is what sums up the idea of going up and climbing that mountain, going from one side to the other, from one stage to the other, without eliminating the previous one. Change, coming from scamb, means curvature, to turn a corner to reconfigure the direction. A change is not transcendental since it negates the previous path, starting from zero, as if in the middle of the climb, a force pulled you back towards a forest on a plain, and everything traveled before no longer made sense. Me. That was what I felt, in a way, with the path of the I Am. That it was a change and not a transcendence. I Am. The change happened in the forms, but not in the essence. Me. I know. However, I still have the need to move on. The thought I had today is that we are only 100 days away from finishing the YOSOY.RED, the way we are doing it, with the daily alignments. Then another stage begins, of course. However, in all this time, something else would happen, and yet I decided to move on to this new form. That is to say, I felt that I was independent from the previous form. Do you understand? I am. I understand you. You have recognized that you are independent by the fact that you allow yourself to move forward despite the fact that the ways have changed. Me. Exactly. I am. Do you want to walk that path? Me. What do you mean? I am. In your mind, tell me, what would you have done in all this time? Many don't know. Me. Well, in February 2020, especially on the 2nd, together with some friends, we opened the gate of time for this project, which enabled us to work day by day with the energy of the I Am. Then we lower this information along the Nile to anchor it in each chakra of the territory, Atartunti, bringing heaven to earth. On March 3rd, 2020, in Philae, the Temple of Isis, in Aswan, I received the message that the next time I returned to Egypt, it would be for a long time. I didn't understand it. I let it go. And from there I went to Italy to finish my citizenship to be able to make my trip through the nodes of the planetary network. From Italy, I went to France to learn French in 3 months, since one of the places I had to go required me to know the language for safety. I arrived in Nancy, France, the day before the quarantine, and I was locked up there, studying French, thinking that my trip would start in August, as expected, for my 33rd birthday. During my 33 years, I was supposed to travel to the 33 nodes of the planet, 12 of the icosahedron, 20 of the dodecahedron, plus the central one connected by the axes of the North and South poles. But hey, everything I had reserved was cancelled, and I understood that I had to continue anyway, move forward. And for this reason, I decided only 15 days before that I would come to Egypt, and I would do all the way from here without traveling. I am. You continued. But otherwise, what would you have done? Me. Well, on July 25th, 2020, I was supposed to be in Murmansk, Russia, to set sail for the physical North Pole. 17 days of sailing through the Arctic on the Russian icebreaker. Upon returning, I would travel to Siberia. My destination was first the island of Olkhon in Lake Baikal, and from there to the sands of Chara. The journey continued by traveling to Hokkaido, Japan, from where he would take a private flight to fly over the deserted area of the North Pacific, or land with government permits on the military island Minami Torishima. Direct flight from Japan to Hawaii, where I would take a boat 400 kilometers north of Kauai, and then go to Alaska, specifically to Barrow on the Arctic coast. The next step would take me to New Mexico, to the white sands of the Four Borders area, to then head to Killiniq Island on the Quebec Peninsula in Canada. A difficult place to reach and dangerous due to polar bears, with which the closest option B was Nuuk, the capital of Greenland. From there to the Caribbean, Anguilla Island, between the Virgin Islands and Antigua and Barbuda. Jumping back to the old world, I would go to Madeira, Portugal, a country from which I could enter São Tomé e Príncipe in the Gulf of Guinea in Africa. And from there, only then, would he set foot on Egypt and Sinai. Although I would not be there for too long, since my next step after the pyramids, it would be flying to the Seychelles to sail to Bird Island, on the way to Somalia, from where I would return to Reunion Island, entering a 25-day scientific ship through the TAAF, the French Southern Antarctic Territory, arriving at Ile Amsterdam, where they asked me to know French out of obligation and security. I'm heading back to Asia again. My next step, it would be Kashmir, north of Pakistan. From there, the return would be through South Asia, starting with Sumatra, in front of Simeulue Island, in the direction of the Bay of Bengal, and then jumping to Taiwan. And from there, Micronesia, still trying to figure out how to get to the small Kapingamarangi atoll off Papua New Guinea, territories from which I could more easily move to Australia, where I would visit the Cape Range Peninsula in the western region. Arriving in New Zealand, I would face a 32-day cruise, which would take me to the nodes close to French Antarctica, at the Dumont d'Urville base, and which would follow the node of the inhospitable Ross Sea, the furthest point of all the world. Upon returning, my path would continue towards French Polynesia, where I had to find a way to reach the lonely island of Rapa, the southernmost island of the country. From there he would fly to Kiribati, and where he could find his way to the deserted island of Howland, to return to French Polynesia, specifically to Nukuhiva, from where he would sail about 1,000 kilometers northeast. Returning to the capital in Tahiti, I would fly to Rapa Nui, Easter Island, another node, entering Chilean territory, from where I would travel to Ecuador to visit Isabela Island in the Galapagos, and then head to Brazil to Fernando de Noronha and descend to the Gran Chaco of Paraguay. Directly from there, I would cross Argentina to the Tierra del Fuego node in Ushuaia, where I would take a new cruise that would take me to the distant Tristão de Cunha Island, in the middle of the way before mooring in the port of Cape Town, South Africa, from where I would go to Lesotho, another node, and so return somehow to Chile to fly to the South Pole. All this with fixed cruise dates and flexible flight dates. Are you seriously not glad that this trip didn't happen like this, and instead you were able to sit still all this time from Egypt? Me. Today I am no longer happy or sad about these things. The path of the I Am through these 33 nodes of the world was something that made my moon in Sagittarius happy. But it also made my ascendant in Capricorn desperate. Many days of disconnection in which nobody would know anything about me. Probably a lot of effort would be thrown into the air, as no one would have known what to do. In this way, people already know the information that they must take into account to activate these sites, so that when this adventure must be carried out, we only need to connect, since the I Am of each one will be aligned. That is why I told you, my feeling today is that moving forward is fundamental. If the world had allowed me to make this trip, I would have advanced to complete it in one way or another, as I did in 2012 with Harvitum around the world, as I did at the end of 2012 with The Great Woman in South America, and as I did in Roma Amor for Iberia and Italy in 2014. No matter the ways, we have to move on. I am. Frustration is the result of depending on an expectation. To advance comes from the Latin ad, meaning towards, and ante, meaning in front. The meaning is to go towards what is ahead, to face it, to move in the frontal direction. Being independent is being able to free oneself from the expectations of the forms, of what we expect it to be, to recognize what it is, and adapt to it without dragging what pushes us back due to fear, emotionality, history, prejudice, or preconception. We cannot live in the past, but we can live from the past. Those who live from the past carry the weight of dependence, of conditions, of what was, and remain still, static, in the previous ideas of their being, which blind them to what is and what can be. Who lives in the past, he is unaware of being trapped in the conditioning of what was, who does not realize that things have changed. In the first case, it is fear that prevents being independent and moving forward in life. In the second case, it is ignorance that things have progressed. Independence is found only in the ability to let go of each step, to recognize that in each part of this journey you have added new knowledge that you took to the next point. That is weaving a web. It is not abandoning what happened, but becoming aware of what the past gives me to shape this fabric. Me. Putting one foot in front of the other, facing life, is not letting go of the past or what connects us to it, but helping that past to overcome its vision of itself as you become aware of what you achieve. I am adapting to circumstances, facing new horizons, launching you into new adventures. It is true, without having the concept of advancement, nothing else can be achieved. Me. Life goes on, and life is a constant. I am. Therefore, to stop is to remain hung up on concepts of what was, and to become independent is to push for what will be. The paths will open up before you if you keep moving forward. And there are people who stay behind, not because they don't serve your path, but because they have contributed to that path. No one is left behind, they just move in different directions. And the direction you take is your own decision. Waiting for others is an option, but never go back, because everyone has their rhythms. We can accompany you on the road and move towards the future, but not go back in the past. Well, even if we look back, for a conscious being, it will mean advancing towards the recognition of the traveled path, reviewing the steps taken, recognizing new options to follow it. Me. For a conscious being, well, all directions are forward. Recognizing, adapting, transcending each step is the key to becoming free beings. I am. This is the wisdom of freedom. Me. I recognize myself free, moving forward in life, becoming wise at each step. I am. I am the way, and you are the steps in me. Advance.
My